Greetings folks, everything here I use to essentially void my warranty. No, I am kidding, but I use everything here to either maintain my laptop or to improve the thermal performance from the laptop, perhaps apply some upgrades within the chassis itself. And before you do anything like this, make sure you check with your manufacturer to see if it's going to be okay to remove that void warranty sticker, to upgrade some of your storage, perhaps clean the fans, and ultimately not void your warranty. It does differ from country to country. So with that said, let's start off with the absolute musts, the iFixit Protect toolkit we have right here on your right-hand side. This thing is a blessing, not in disguise. This is an absolute must-have. There's several bits, pry tools, plastic, metal, grounding devices, suction cups, everything you could possibly need to take apart practically any laptop, smartphone, just small hardware such as those devices, and it is great. Many people have taken apart their laptops using a screwdriver too small or too big. They strip out their screws and are very frustrated. Do yourself a favor. If you're gonna buy an $800 laptop, $1,000 laptop, whatever, and you wanna take it apart and do some maintenance, spend the $50, $60, $70 on one of these and it'll last you your lifetime. There's a reason why all your favorite tech channels do have this in their bag. Now, in addition to when you decide to take apart your laptop, I've got the wingspan of a condor, so I have this great workspace and arm length, and I'm not bumping into various things, and I can address taking apart my laptop without compromising the screws. Let me explain. When I take everything out, I will set it outside of the laptop near its corresponding hole. That might not be ideal for many of you, and as a result, I highly recommend this magnetized dish. This is very nice to put your screws and store them so it won't fall. Now, when taking apart your laptop and you happen to lose a screw, that can be very frustrating, and as somebody who takes apart all laptops, especially review units, the last thing I want to do is lose a screw buried in the carpet. That is why I have this kit, which is screws specifically for laptops. This again will be linked on my storefront page. This here usually runs about $8. Next thing you might want to do is clean out the dust from within your chassis, especially where the fans and heatsink, there could be a lot of buildup, especially if you're in an environment where there's a lot of dust, pets, dander, things like that. Over time, you can accumulate quite a bit of dirt and grime. Now, as fun as this may be to take some compressed air or an air compressor to your fans, it makes a really neat noise. Unfortunately, that's a quick way to burn out the bearings within your fans. You see, most of these laptop fans are rated for around 3,000 RPM. Taking compressed air directly to the fans is going to spin them way past that, ultimately burning out your bearings. So do yourself a favor, make sure you put your thumb or finger gently on the fan to prevent it from spinning while you blow out some of the dust and dirt from your chassis. Now, the next thing you might want to do is replace the thermal paste on your laptop, and there's many out there to choose from. The more popular recommendation from me has been Thermo Grizzly Cryonaut. I think this yields the best performance, but I also find it to not last quite as long as some of the other thermal pastes out there. If you are comfortable taking apart your laptop maybe every 5 or 6 months, then I think it could be a great solution for you, and it's how I live my laptop life. Other people out there may want a firmer paste, such as maybe Icy Diamond or Phobia Nano Grease. And the actual paste thickness of this can actually help fill in some of the gaps and imperfections with how the cooler itself fits your motherboard. And this can occur on the same laptop. As we test out 10 same chassis, you may have 3 of them that are a little wonky with the fitment and 7 of them that fit great. So a little bit of trial and error there. I know it sounds like I'm suggesting you perhaps buy a couple of different pastes, and you know what, maybe I am. But if you are having some trouble with core uniformity using a softer paste such as Cryonaut, then maybe going with a firmer paste or massaging your cooler to get it to fit correctly might be ideal. There's a lot of trial and error here. This is not just let's just take it apart, put paste on it, put it back together and have it work. For many of you, that will be the case. Others will not have that much luck. What about Carbonaut? I have a video featuring the carbon pad that will go on the CPU and GPU. May not have the best thermal performance. It's about 3 degrees Celsius warmer than Cryonaut, apparently, is what I have been told. However, what I like about the carbon pad is it's essentially going to last forever, or so they say. and this is a very nice quality of life, especially on laptops, and I think this could be ideal for the majority out there. Maybe not the majority that watch this video, but it would be a very, very unique thing for many manufacturers to perhaps take a look at. And I would definitely recommend the Carbonite pad on the Ryzen CPUs, as they tend to run about 5 to 10 degrees Celsius cooler than Intel, and I can afford a couple extra degrees Celsius warmer using the Carbonite pad versus the best non-conductive paste, for the fact that it should last forever, and I think that's pretty awesome. Now, when it comes to liquid metal, it is all in the prep work. I cannot emphasize that enough, and this is not for everyone. While typical best case scenarios offer a 10 degrees Celsius improvement, a lot of that is going to depend on your prep work, the chassis thermal efficiency, and whether or not you can actually max out the fans. And that last part, being able to max out the fans, is really going to dictate the overall thermal improvement from everything that you see here today. Now, when it comes to the prep work, especially on the GPU, as the raised contact points are very hard to cover up, and you want to make sure that you remove all of the old thermal interface material, and that is why I have these toothbrushes here, as I work on those contact points to make sure that everything is clean. And then of course I go over all of the points of the cooler and CPU dies and everything that had thermal paste with isopropyl alcohol. Maybe I'll start off with some basic paper towels, but it does leave fuzz behind. From there, maybe I'll use a microfiber cloth to get a nice polish, and then the final wipe down, of course, once again with isopropyl alcohol and some coffee filters, which will not leave any residue whatsoever. This is a little bit picky, and I think a lot of people tend to just use paper towels and isopropyl alcohol. Anything around that 90% or higher will be just fine. This is 91%. I've been using it for years. Many folks will just use a paper towel, the alcohol, blow the fuzz away, and call it good. If you're good with that, then so be it, but I tend to go the extra mile with the microfiber cloth and the coffee filter. Now, after that, we have to make sure those contact points are covered up. You can use a conformal coating, maybe some nail polish. I know it sounds ridiculous, but Google search this is a very popular solution. Put a nice 1 to 3 layers over all the contact points on the PCB directly outside the CPU and GPU. Another solution is the 33 Plus tape. It's very, very thin, and its heat resistance is around 105 degrees Celsius, or maybe a little bit warmer before it melts, which means those Intel chips that thermal throttle at 100 degrees Celsius will not impact this, because this is not directly on the die, it is on the PCB, where it will not get as hot as the CPU itself. So rest assured that this is a good solution for covering up the contact points, especially around the CPU. The GPU, however, is a little bit more challenging because of those raised contact points, and while you can use some sort of coating or fingernail polish to get the job done, I will also add a foam barrier around the GPU itself to prevent any sort of spillage making contact with those contact points. Over here, I have a ton of foam that I use for this exact occasion. And what I will do is I will cut a piece out that will fit around the GPU itself and literally just set it around the GPU after applying some of that nail polish as well, letting that dry, and this foam barrier will act as a dam to prevent any of that liquid metal of seeping out to potentially short out your system. And I know this sounds risky and it's only for just the niche group of people, but I'm just sharing with you some of the things that I use when it comes to modifying and just ultimately screwing around with laptops. Now, the last thing that I will cover is the Fuji Poly thermal pads, or just thermal pads in general, as I have a whole bag of them of all different shapes, sizes, lengths, thicknesses, all that good stuff there. Many different brands as well. The Fuji Poly tends to work the best, or so that is my understanding. And the reason why I would use this is not to replace the thermal pads that are currently on the system, but to install thermal pads on a system that did not have them to begin with. So certain manufacturers will actually use a non-conductive thermal paste on all of the video memory, chokes, all of those components versus thermal pads. And while that does work pretty well, it's not going to last quite as long as a thermal pad will. So I will use 0.5 millimeter thin pads to apply on those heat sensitive spots that once had thermal interface material. Now, some people will be very surprised when they open up their laptop, especially on a lot of the thinner and lighter ones, and find everything just coated with thermal interface material. When that happens, you're going to need Q-tips, toothbrushes, isopropyl alcohol, and probably a good 30 to 60 minutes to make sure that you get everything as squeaky clean as possible. If you do this, you'll be very proud of yourself, and after you apply some thermal pads on those heat-sensitive parts, know that maintenance down the road is going to be 10 times easier than it was the first time. So at this point, you would give yourself a pat on the back. You may have avoided your warranty, but at least you now know how to maintain your laptop. As many of you, no doubt, sometime in the future are going to need some of the things that I have featured here today in this video, especially that iFixit ProTech Toolkit. And that's going to do it, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Bob of All Trades, and I'll see you soon.